This Earth was here before us, and it will be here long after we're gone. Every living thing on it has evolved together over eons of time. And although we are part of the web of life, because we see it, we think we stand above it. From all that nature gave us, we have made a new world out of wilderness. Built great civilizations. It seemed there was nothing we could not do. Even the sky itself was not the limit. We see the symptoms of a reality we didn't expect. Have we reached the limitations of our human nature? Living here in the future's past. Hey there, and welcome to the Sustainability Symposium. I'm Jeff Bridges, and it's great to be here. Well, in spirit, not in physically, but I wish I could be. But I'm elsewhere. But I wanted to welcome you guys to this exciting symposium that is going to be a wonderful event. You're going to be hearing from Susan Kucera, who's the wonderful director, cinematographer, screenwriter of a film that we've worked on that we're very excited about called Living in the Future's Past. And it's wonderful to be here with you guys in spirit, as I say, be in partnership with you to create a beautiful world. Everyone knows deep down that this is a rapidly changing world. So much so that the concept of the world we once knew as a way of distinguishing between human beings and everything else has evaporated.
You know, Jeff, I've been a real admirer of your work for a long time, but I never really knew that you had a passion for the environment and for the future of the planet, the way you've expressed in this incredible film. And so I wonder if you could enlighten us a little bit as to the genesis of your involvement in this project and in the bigger picture.
Yeah, well, I think it starts, I guess, with my folks. My dad, Lloyd Bridges, who's an actor, had that TV show in the 60s called Sea Hunt.
Of course.
And he was a great lover of the sea and the health of the ocean. And of course, that spread to the rest of the planet. He was very environmentally conscious. And also, he saw us all as a family. I remember him as a kid. I remember him bringing a book home called The Family of Man. Do you remember that book by any chance? Was it Look or Life? One of those magazines put it out. And it was a wonderful book that showed what it was like to be a human being, experiencing that all over the world, what life was like. And I remember my dad saying, this is it. We are a family. We all have to take care of each other. And that goes for our planet as well.
So was there an aha moment when you realized that you had to bring your public voice and your persona to the cause of trying to make sure that we are more careful with this precious world? Yeah,
I think one of those aha moments was when I got invited to participate in this film. And as I was saying, I certainly care about our planet, and I love it, and want it to be beautiful for my kids and my grandkids. And when the opportunity came to be involved in this film, to be a narrator, and it turned out to actually then kind of morph into being one of the producers on the film, I said, oh, here's my chance to make a difference, to use my celebrity in helping to create that world that I want to create.
There's much more energy in the system. We have very little knowledge of how Earth's biological life support systems will respond to dramatic and rapid change.
Yeah, I can understand that. I've always found it interesting that despite any kind of disaster or catastrophe, nature always finds a way to choose life. After a lava flow, after a forest fire, after floods and tsunamis, no matter what happens, soon after, nature will begin reintroducing life.
so
And I
true.
wonder why we can't come to grips with that, get our arms around that, and embrace that in a way that makes it more possible for us to be part of that big picture. And I think that Living in the Future's Past does a wonderful job of expressing the need and the desire that we feel deep in our hearts about reconnecting the human environment and the natural environment, of which we really can't extract ourselves.
We're part of the system. We're nature. We're part of the earth, and we're fundamentally dependent on its good graces. Very symbiotic relationship to everything on this earth.
We are a part of nature. We're not other than nature. We're an expression of it.
Absolutely.
And we don't always make the wise decision, but we're certainly capable of being wise. We're flexible, you know. And a line from a movie that I made years ago comes to mind, a movie called Starman. I play this alien and kind of I'm exploring Earth and humanity and so forth. And I'm talking to one of these scientists played by Charlie Martin Smith who's been following my character, and I say to him, you know what I love most about your species is that when things are at their worst, you are at your best.
So true.
And that seems to be true. Some of these challenges that we face, you know, there can be frightening, but those can also be opportunities to rise to the occasion and let nature move through us to make that beautiful world that we envision.
You know, that reminds me of one of my very favorite lines from one of your movies, The Contender, when you spoke to Congress.
But there is no weapon as powerful as that of an idea whose time has come.
And
There's
so,
nothing so powerful as
I
a
think that we may be at
idea
that
whose
point
time has
with this
come.
whole debate around the chasm that we've allowed to develop between the human experience and the rest of nature. As you expressed, we're part of that, and we need to find a way to re-embrace that and to reconnect these things, because we only have this one opportunity as it is, and I don't want to be looking back at this future's past and realizing that we didn't do all that we could do. Now, you have a public voice, you have a fame all over the planet, but how does the ordinary person avail themselves of the tools and find the courage to stand up to all of the forces that would hold us back?
Yeah. Well, I know, just looking inside myself, I know one of my challenges is dealing with my own cynicism. You know, I often throw up my hand and say, look, can you look at the TV? Look what's going on. I can't believe, oh, there's no use. We're done for, you know. That's dangerous kind of thinking, you know. A little shift inside of us can turn that into, I better get busy. Look at this. This is where some people want to go. We can't go there. We got to go another way. That's my personal opinion. You know, we got to do something. Sure. I'm a big fan of Buckminster Fuller. You know, the guy who invented the geodesic dome, and you know, wonderful inventor, scientist, philosopher. And he made a wonderful observation. He looked down at the big ocean-going tankers, and he knew that the engineers who created these big tankers were really challenged by the rudder, and they needed a big enough rudder to turn that big ship, but it took too much energy to turn that rudder. So they came up with a very simple, elegant plan of putting a little rudder on that big rudder. So the little rudder turns the big rudder turns the ship. And that little rudder is called a trim tab. Mm-hmm. And Bucky said, this is a wonderful metaphor for how the individual affects society. That in fact, we are all trim tabs. And we might be, you know, one individual, but we can align ourselves with people who are more powerful, you know, who have different ideas than us, but, you know, are heading in the same direction. And we can turn that rudder and we can turn that ship. Bucky, on his gravestone, has engraved, call me Trim Tab.
That's
I
interesting.
love that.
I didn't know that.
And that's what his whole life was about. And that inspired me. I'd like to think of myself as a trim tab. I'd like to think of you as a trim tab, all of us, as a matter of fact, that we all have something to give, you know.
Well, it's interesting too that even a slight course correction over time can involve a tremendous change of direction.
It does.
And if we'll just be patient and if we will stay steady on the tiller, we can find a way to a more sustainable future. I think that it's possible.
It is very possible, and it can happen very quickly, as you notice. You know, things change rapidly. One of the concepts that we talk about in our movie is something called emergent behavior. It's a phenomenon that happens all around nature. You see it in flocks of birds. You know, there'll be beautiful, you know, shapes, and why are they moving in that shape and not this shape? They're like this. Why they're not? Or schools of fish,
Absolutely,
you know. And there's no leader, but there's an emergent behavior that's being caused by these individual entities that really, if you took them apart, you would have no idea that they make this particular shape. Or you know, an ant is a good example of a singular ant. Doesn't tell you anything about an anthill, but you get a bunch of ants together, all of a sudden it's an anthill, and there's all kinds of behavior that you can see. And that emergent behavior is also happening in us human beings, that we are also a superorganism that is, you know, working in the planet. Now we have an opportunity to look back and see, are we behaving in the wisest fashion? Are there some habits that we can check that will serve us in the future?
Bees and ants are individual organisms performing different roles. They rush about to feed or defend the colony, and collectively they create a superorganism. Of course, humans are not social insects, but if you were able to watch a village or a city from a distance over time, it looks a lot like a growing interdependent superorganism. A reorganization of material existence with far-reaching implications.
I wonder if we don't put too much emphasis and put maybe too much faith in government or in organized leadership or whatever the case may be, even the scientific community. The best of intentions are certainly important. Asking the questions are important. But I think that emergent behavior that you're talking about really gives us the momentum to effect change over a period of time. And I'm not sure we can leave it in the hands of others because it hasn't worked so far.
I think that's really dangerous to think, oh, it's going to kind of trickle down from on high, those guys. We really got to look at our individual behavior and, you know, make the difference, the changes that we can, you know.
You know, there seems to be, in my experience, there seems to be an inherent conflict between economic beliefs and environmental beliefs. And I've always wondered why we struggle with that and why we can't bring those two things together. Because it seems to me that if we would embrace the natural world, we would not sacrifice, we would benefit from it.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts along those lines?
Yeah, well, we're habitual creatures. You know, we're kind of, I know myself, I'm addicted to comfort. I like to be comfortable. And that's often keeping the status quo, you know, where it is. But we also have the power to look at that and see if that's really serving us in the future. Is that we're really a habit that we want to keep, you know?
Was there a particular striking moment when one of the participants, one of the experts in Living in the Future's Past said something that caught you off guard or really turned the light bulb on for you?
Yeah, one of the things that's I think most important is that we are using this precious, turns out that it's, you know, toxic as well, but it's a precious energy source that we're using in a kind of a capricious way. You know, we're not thinking about, we're going to need that energy to create a new system of energy. So I think that's an important thing to, you know, to bring to light, that you know, this it's not so much thinking that oil is bad, we've got to keep all the oil in the ground. No, we can't afford to do that. We've got to use the oil to create this new energy
It
system.
allows us to go to the next step.
That's
You know,
right, yeah.
People, when the whaling industry collapsed at the end of the Civil War, people thought that that was going to be the end of civilization and the end of the
Yeah.
economy. And it turns out that they drilled a well and oil came up, and all of a
There
sudden
you
whale
go.
oil was no longer needed and probably saved the species.
Yeah,
as a
that was
matter of
another
fact.
thing
So,
that Bucky brings up. He says, if you want to change something, don't go right up against it. Come up with something new that makes that thing you want to change obsolete.
Absolutely.
You know, like this, like you were saying, the oil. Well, we can come up with, more stuff like that.
I think we all have a great opportunity, and that's how we have to look at it, because the challenge can be overwhelming. And so it's difficult. I know there are things that keep me awake at night, water being one of them, and the
big
whole water
time.
issue, especially here in the Southwest and in the Western United
Yeah.
States. And so that's a big one. Is there something that keeps you awake at night?
When you say that, what pops into my head is my wife and I, just earlier this year, we had to be rescued by helicopter because we were involved with that big debris flow in Santa Barbara that, we were the lucky ones. It killed 22 people, caused by that fire that, burned, the mountains over Montecito. And there was no foliage to hold up the mountain, and here it comes, wiped out our house. We were rescued by helicopters and all that. So that kept me up that night.
Yeah, for sure. That would haunt you well into the future, I'm sure.
It gives you a little personal feeling about what this subject is all about.
It does, and even all the best preparation in the world doesn't mean that you're completely protected, because Mama's in charge, and when
That's
Mother
right.
Nature takes over, we're all in for a lesson.
Yeah.
One more thing, Jeff.
Yeah.
Earlier you alluded to the fact that it's easy to sort of get lost in the depression of this whole thing. So how do you feel about the future of the human species? Do you think that we're ready to evolve into a more enlightened state so that we can move to that place where we have sustainability and we have appreciation for all of the gifts that nature gives us?
I can't read I can't look into the future, but as the movie title implies, we're living in the future's past, which is right now, is the present. So what we do right now, that's going to determine our future, and whether we're creating that kind of world that we dream of, then we're on the path, and we're going in the right direction,
So it's not just about looking back, it's about looking forward.
There you go, and we can do this. We're capable. Nature is capable of doing this.
Well, you've lent a huge voice to this, and we appreciate it more than you know.
Great being in partnership with you, Rob.
You too. Thanks.
All right.
Energy is the currency of life. Here we discover the truth of who we really are, how we're connected to the world, for better or for worse. Could the solution we're looking for be inside us? We're humankind.
Ingenuity is in our DNA, and we can visualize. What kind of future would you like to see? What are you willing to contribute towards creating that future?
Who knows what will happen next?